Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Shropshire Council's Cabinet meeting of Wednesday, the 5th of March. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Can I remind members to please identify your name and role before speaking so that it is clear to those watching the meeting who is speaking. So item number 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Dan Morris, Councillor Cecilia Motley, and also from Tanya Miles, Executive Director of People. Item number 2 is disclosable interests. Do I have any disclosable interests? Thank you very much. Item number 3 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of February. I'm happy to propose those minutes. Do I have a seconder?
Councillor Ian Nellens, Deputy Leader. I'll second.
Thank you very much indeed. All those in favour? Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, public question time. We have a number of public questions this afternoon, and I think apart from one, they're all to be read by Mr. Collard. So the first question is from Mike Streetley. Tim Collard.
Thank you. Highways magazine published an article about the North West Relief Road on the 24th of January, in which it said Councillor Morris said the council had met with key stakeholders to dispel some of the myths around the impact of the North West Relief Road, and that these stakeholders have been shown excerpts from the traffic collision and journey time modelling that has been undertaken as part of the full business case. In a question to Council on the 27th of February by David Vasma about what information from the full business case was shared with third parties in advance of release to councillors, Dan Morris said the data recently discussed with stakeholders around traffic modelling was based on the original information supporting the North West Relief Road full planning application. This information has been in the public domain since 2021. These two statements contradict each other. Could Councillor Morris explain which is correct? The Council's 2021 transport assessment shows that 15 years after building the North West Relief Road, queues on the junctions along Midnote Road past the hospital will be made worse by building the road. Did Councillor Morris highlight all the places, including roads near Shrewsbury's hospital, that the North West Relief Road would actually make traffic worse?
Thank you, Tim. And as Councillor Morris isn't able to be here today, I will read the answer. The answer to Mr. Streetley's new question is as follows. The Council's base traffic model in the public domain and as submitted as part of the planning application in 2021 has been externally verified and endorsed by National Highways, the Department for Transport and Shropshire Council Highways. Further, post-COVID verification of this has also been undertaken and again verified by the Department for Transport. This remains the base traffic model that has been updated further to the present day for the published draft full business case. It continues to show overall appreciable improvements in cross-town journey time, and it is this information originating from the published base model that was communicated to stakeholders. As would be expected with blue light services in particular, their coverage is town and county wide, and as such, improvements delivered by the North West Relief Road in this context are those that were cited as reasons for their support for the construction of the road. The second question we have is from Mr. Graham Betts, and again that is to be read by Tim Collard. Tim, can I suggest, oh no, it doesn't matter. Sorry, I thought this was one where we had one. Yeah, minimal parts. Thank you, Tim.
At the Cabinet meeting dated the 17th of July 2024, the Council apologised for not providing information I had requested on the 16th of January 2024. I still have not received that information, which the Council is legally advised to provide within 40 working days. This is despite several reminders and only a partial provision given. The request asked for full details of SIL and other payments made to the Council for local provision when compared Section 6.9.1 of the planning application 1303-285 full. Can the council tell me, 1, why it is unable or unwilling to provide this information relating to clause 6.9.1 of said application? 2, why the council is prepared to act unlawfully and ignore the Freedom of Information Act even after being sanctioned by the Information Commissioner as the worst performing council in the country? 3, why none of the £151,000 is available for road signage and speed control measures on the development covered by paragraph 6.9.1. 4, why is there no bus service provided specifically covered by the £519,480 stated in accordance with paragraph 6.9.1, 6.6.2 and 6.6.8 of the planning application? 5, why has none of the £1,184,574 been spent on play facilities in accordance with paragraph 6.4.1 and 6.9.1 of the planning application? And 6, concerned about delays, what are the critical dates for the use of each sum before they are lost?
Thank you, Tim. Response, Councillor Chris Schofield.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Chris Schofield, Portfolio Holder, Planning and Regulatory Services. The Council responded to a request for information 6141 on the 13th of February 2024. Subsequently, further information was provided to Mr. Betts by way of a response to a Cabinet question on the 17th of July 2024. The response to the Cabinet question on the 17th of July 2024 clarified what was meant by paragraph 6.9.1 of the Planning Committee report into 13/03/285/full. It is therefore considered the Council has provided a response to the customer query. This response, provided in July 2024, set out the expected quantum of the developer contributions expected from the combined schemes of 13/03/285/full and 13/03534/out and its subsequent reserved matters approval. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Schofield. The next question is from Phil Gillam, which I understand is going to be read by Rosemary. Councillor Rosemary Dartnell. Do you want Tim to do it, Rosemary?
Yeah, because it'll take me a moment to find it.
Fine, no problem.
Sorry.
Question is this: frustrated dog walkers living in the Otley Road area of Shrewsbury find it absolutely incredible that Shropshire Council cannot provide just one dog waste bin on a popular walking route. Yet this is what they're being told. The council receives large amounts of council tax from the Maxfield Drive area and provides minimal services in return that are specific to the area. An extra litter bin placed on the junction of Maxfield Drive and the popular walking route to Sharpstone's Quarry is clearly needed to address a local littering issue. It is unacceptable to refuse to consider such a minor request. If Shropshire Council is so strapped for cash that it can no longer supply and service litter bins where they are very much needed, they need to level with Salopians right now. Please reconsider and provide this one dog waste bin. It will make a lot of people very happy. Will the council reconsider?
I get all the good jobs today. So Councillor Dan Morris responding, but I will be reading his answer. To address the concerns of dog walkers living in Otley Road, Street Scene Services can advise that they have embarked on a fundamental redesign project to address deficiencies across street cleansing service currently provided, which historical have not changed for many years. I should have read this before I started to read it out. This has resulted in built-in costly inefficiencies through the adding of a waste bin here and there, for example. The aim of the project has been to define the service requirements that align to the environment, use of the space, and understand the available resource capacity and the infrastructure we are trying to service. We are in the position of finalising the information which will allow us to make informed decisions in the future and create a service and culture that is agile and intelligence-led. And these will need to be the parameters we will work with going forward. The concept that a bin prevents dog fouling or littering is fundamentally not sound, and what we need to encourage is the right behaviour from dog owners, that they should be taking their dog bag with them instead of relying on the convenience of having a waste bin provided for them by the council. And the next question is from David Macy, and again, Tim Collard to read. If you wouldn't mind, Tim, thank you.
Could the portfolio holder for highways explain, please, why residents' parking was not implemented for Lisley Street in Bridge North following a traffic regulation order with scheme proposals that was issued for public consultation between 30th of March and 27th of April 2023. The TRO was supported by the public, by local councillors, and there was no referral to Cabinet for any objections, comments, therefore meeting the Council's criteria for approval. To get to this stage, extensive strategic work was undertaken, with resource by Shropshire Council, including workshops with residents, all completed ahead of the March 2023 consultation. So, taking this as an individual consultation / TRO for Lisley Street only, 1, why was this not implemented?
Again, so Councillor Dan Morris isn't here today, so I will be reading the response. This was not implemented as an internal decision-making the internal decision-making process had not been undertaken correctly, and the scheme was placed on hold by the director with discussion with the portfolio holder at that time. Next question.
2, when can it be implemented as it met your approval requirements?
Thank you. No programme is currently available and resources will need to be assigned to this project. It is agreed that a lot of good work was undertaken through the workshops and traffic regulation consultation, and this will help support a future project to deliver a reworked resident parking scheme for Lisley Street and other streets. It should be noted that some of the resource that the changes agreed to car parking charges was going to be allocated to looking at a wider parking strategy. As we are aware, due to delays caused by a call-in and consultations, those changes have not yet been implemented. Therefore, the necessary resource is not yet available to effect the changes necessary. Thank you, Tim. And item 5, sorry, I just switched my mic off. Item number 5, member question time. There is one emergency question, although I query whether it's an emergency, but I have allowed it, from Councillor David Vasmer. David, if you'd like to come forward.
Yes, thank you. My question is this. Will Councillors Leslie Picton and Dan Morris review the option to cancel on North West Relief Road and enter into talks with the government, since it was announced yesterday that the government will not ask for the return of 33 million funding it granted towards its cancelled plan by Norfolk County Council? They were going to build a similar road around Norwich, comparable in many ways to the North West Relief Road.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Vasmer, and I'm responding to this. The first thing I would actually say to you is that this is in no way similar to the Norfolk and Norwich bypass, because this is a situation where the council could not continue, and that was actually covered in our many options that were in the business case last Thursday. But it is understood that the Norfolk example cited was working around environmental constraints that do not apply to the North West Relief Road, so the comparison is not an accurate one. For clarity, it refers to Barbastral bats, which is a very rare bat and is only found in that one area of Norfolk. It must also be stressed that the North West Relief Road has been assessed at outline business case stage and lastly as a draftable business case. In both assessments, the benefit cost ratio for the construction of the road and its associated wider impacts, air quality, reduced congestion, increased uptake of walking and cycling in the town, etc., cannot be delivered by any other type of scheme. Furthermore, it should be noted that the large local majors funding stream the council is accessing through the DFT for the North West Relief Road is focused solely on the delivery of key highways infrastructure, and as such is not available for any alternative proposals. You may ask a supplementary question by all means, but the chances are I probably won't be able to answer it, but fire away.
Yes, well, one is that basically the principle is that money will be returned, will not have to be returned by Norwich Norfolk County Council, and so that principle surely applies to Shropshire. Whether it's the different scheme and different reasons for the road not going ahead, and secondly, the business case is based upon an old assessment of the cost of the road. The existing cost of the road, 250 million, is not used in the official business case. And in the full business case, and it's the benefit cost ratio figures cannot therefore be relied upon.
Well, I'll take your second point first. I'm pretty sure that is absolutely incorrect, and that actually is based on the updated figures, because the updated figures are related all the way through that business case. In terms of your first point, it is not the same in any way, shape or form. And if you remember, I think, and I can't remember at what meeting it was at, but it was certainly at a council meeting where we discussed the situation. So what's happened in Norfolk is that they have not been able to gain planning permission for that site because Natural England, yes, will not remove their objection to that application. So they're not in a position to take that forward. And we made that very clear in our option statement that had we not been able to secure planning permission, then we would have said to the government, in all good faith, we have carried out this process, and hoped that they would not claim that money back. But that is not the same as the North West Relief Road in any way, shape or form. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, which is scrutiny items, and I believe that Scrutiny Chair, Councillor Joyce Barrow, is online. Yes, there she is. So this relates to the recommendations that came from the speaking this afternoon. This comes from the Economy and Environment Overview and Scrutiny Committee of the 14th November. And if Cabinet members remember from last month, we Joyce came to us and presented the recommendations, and we said we would go away and look at those recommendations ASAP, which we have done. Now, Councillor Barrow, I'm quite happy to go through these with you, but I trust that you've probably already read them. Are you happy with these, Councillor Barrow?
I'm very happy. I welcome them, and I look forward to seeing what happens in the future. And of course, this will come back to the Economy and Environment Scrutiny Committee after the election, whoever that might be, and I hope that they keep a watchful eye on it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Barrow. So just for everybody else's benefit, there are a number of recommendations that go throughout this paper. It will have to go back to the first meeting of the Economy and Environment Committee, which I believe is June time. And as Councillor Barrow said, I sincerely hope that a lot of this is taken forward. The one area that I think does require more work is, just for your information, Joyce, is around the street scene work. But as I say, that's actually been noted in the paper. So I believe we have to vote on that, and I'm happy to propose it.
Councillor Ian Nellens, portfolio holder for climate change, environment and transport. I'll second.
Okay, so we are now voting on to send this back to the Economy and Environment Committee. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Okay, moving on to item number 7, financial monitoring period 10. Councillor Gwilym Butler.
Thank you, Leader. It's Councillor Gwilym Butler, Cabinet Member for Finance, Corporate Resources and Communities. Again, this is just bringing forward our monthly figures up to the end of January. We've seen a very slight improvement of around £800,000. And I just moved the recommendations as set out in item 3, with the comment that this is very similar to where we were this time last year and the year before, and probably the year before that. And it just shows the way we actually run the year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Butler, and I'm happy to second that. Councillor Evans?
Thank you, Chairman. It is a pity this year is a repeat of the previous years. When a budget is set, it is expected a budget is maintained from whatever reason, whatever. There are gains and losses throughout. But to see this sort of overspend yet again is concerning at the way the council is managed by the Cabinet. I also note that in 21A, it says there's been an improvement and the overspend has been reduced. Why has it been reduced? It's because 1.4 million has been taken from the reserves to boost this money. So actually, it's been worsened by £790, £790,000. So this improvement is not in services, it's because we've taken money from reserves to assist it. And I also note 51.8% of the savings, if you include the one-offs, it's 57.38% of the savings. So over 40% of the savings were again failed to be delivered. If one looks at the projected savings to be added to this for next year, plus the 26.9 million that the council has had to borrow in order to pay expenses incurred this year by PwC and others, it's over £80 million in either savings in the revenue budget or in capital sales has got to be made next year. A horrendous figure, and I do not think that this is anything to be proud of after 4 years of this administration. Thank you.
Rosemary Dartman.
Thank you. Councillor for Eastern Hill, Colham and Sutton. While the massive overspend of the budget is marginally improved in the data to the end of January, it is clear Shropshire Conservatives have driven the council to a long-lasting financial crisis. The end of the financial year will not see the end of this crisis. If we focus on the central projection, the council may have left £4 million in the general reserve, but it's clear this amounts to tinkering. Shropshire Council has again failed to achieve budgeted savings, leaving 38 million savings previously highlighted and budgeted, but never realised. Every month we talk about favourable, central and adverse positions, but the truth is there is no favourable position here. Let's face it, the adverse position would spell immediate bankruptcy and all the agonies that would bring for Shropshire residents for many years ahead. Overspending the 2024-25 budget by somewhere between £31 and £49 million spells disaster that is fully the responsibility of the Conservative administration.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dartman. Must be election time, Councillor Butler. I'm sure all those people who are in desperate need of our services in social care will be too delighted to hear that you think that that is ruining everything for Shropshire. We don't talk about an overspend. What we talk about is demand. And the demand, as I've said many times, and I said it last week, the demand will keep rising unless we get the prevention right. And we have done two things. We have put prevention at the top of the agenda and put more money into that. And we will continue to look after the most vulnerable in our society. I don't believe that that is a failure at all. I think anybody who puts the most vulnerable in their society at the top of their agenda could not be considered a failure. I also take issue with the idea that all of our savings in 1 year have yet to be made, because as both Councillor Dartnell and Councillor Evans are aware, in some cases these savings are over 2 or even 3 years. Councillor Butler. I'm not going to let you come back, Roger. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Leader. Just to add on to what you're actually saying, after being doing collaborative budgets since the end of September with all the opposition, and as we saw at full council last week, it's quite disturbing that all opposition parties are constantly, their glass is half empty and woe is I and everything is awful. Sorry, not yourself, Ed. I do apologise, the independents. But we don't actually see any ideas. Now, the truth of the matter is, for the council taxpayers of Shropshire, is that the finances of this council has had £100 million taken out of its grant, and all they will have seen would be an introduction of a cost for their green bin. And at the same time, we have achieved a good Ofsted for our children's services, and we've recently received a good for our safeguarding and adult social care. Now, everything is open. We haven't closed any libraries, any leisure centres, or anything. But what we're not hearing from the opposition is any alternatives. All it is let's take it out on the administration because we haven't done 100% of our savings in this year. But what we have done in this year to date, to the end of January, is we have delivered £46.642 million worth of savings in 10 months. Now, I would challenge any administration after the 2nd of May to do any better than that in 10 months. But I can tell the people of Shropshire something, that if I'm still in control of the finances and the Conservatives are, we will carry on doing what we're doing, and probably in another couple of years we will be fully there and totally delivered with a modern, sustainable, efficient, good county council. Thank you.
Proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 8, housing strategy. Councillor Dean Carroll.
Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor Dean Carroll, Cabinet Member for Housing and Assets. Before I actually introduce the strategy, I'd just like to add that I'm moving an amendment, a minor amendment to recommendation 3.1, that in place of saying for an 8-week public and stakeholder consultation, it will now read for a 12-week public and stakeholder consultation. The rationale behind that is post-election changes, when the consultation actually takes place, I think it's only fair to whoever is portfolio holder for housing after that they have the time to not only get their feet under the table, but to fully understand and comprehend the intricacies of the housing world before they move forward with decisions on the strategy. So this is designed to give further time to whoever holds that position after the 1st of May. Now, this housing strategy is an excellent and exciting document. The full strategy is attached at Appendix 1. I'd like to pay tribute to the officers in general across the housing department, but specifically to Tammy Sabanovic, who is the lion that has driven forward all of these housing and independent living strategies that I've had the honour to bring forward to Cabinet over the last 12 months. This is one that has been in the works for a considerable period of time, and I'm delighted that we're able to get it over the line so that it's able to go out to consultation promptly. It sits alongside the Shropshire Health and Wellbeing Strategy, and it also sits alongside the wider Shropshire Plan in laying out how we are delivering housing services to the people of Shropshire, and ultimately what we want to achieve from our housing functions. There is only the one recommendation, which, as I said, I'm moving amendment 2. So subject to that amendment, I'll move recommendation 3.1.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carroll. Do I have a second? Councillor Jones.
Probably Bonkham as well. I've got the chance to do that before the election. I agree with this. Housing is one of our key priorities. We've got some excellent officers working to make these things happen. And of course, the housing is very much a key with trying to get the homeless and things like that as well in hand as well. So we're trying to do a lot of things under our housing portfolio. We've still got 4,000 houses. Obviously, we lose a few with the right to buy, but this is an area we'd like to grow. And unfortunately, the opposition don't understand that things like the North West Relief Road will release housing land, which we'll be able to build on, which will sustain us even further. So, you know, it's not just a road, which apparently Rosemary said goes from nowhere to nowhere. But if she ever looks at a map, it's actually the ring road. It's not a North West Relief Road. It's a ring road. It's just completing what is already there to make it easier to get round Shrewsbury and not go into Shrewsbury. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Councillor Heather Kidd.
Thank you. Some of us do understand housing, as Dean well knows, and we've been understanding housing for many, many years. So I'm delighted that we have a housing strategy in front of us, and I'm delighted that actually it will come back to the next council for us to firm up. I am not going to touch on the flipping Northwest Relief Road yet again. I think we've heard enough of that at the moment. There are a number of concerns I have around this strategy that need to be built into it, not least how Home Point still operates, and actually the delivery of housing in rural areas where we have parish support and where Home Point actually is stopping locals in need of housing from being able to apply for them, which I will bring up with you separately. I've now got 2 cases. The second one was for today. So there are a number, it is very intricate, and actually the delivery of affordable housing on any site is vitally important that it actually hits our housing need, not the giant housing need, which is often for other people and from people from outside, because we cannot provide the housing we need for our people, for our key workers and so on. So the complexity around how Home Point actually allows people to bid on properties which have been local needs housing where we've had good support, such that some people are now being stopped for bidding on those properties, is just not right, and it will mean that we don't get community buy-in to housing locally. And since I have 13 houses, which I'm delighted with in my village, which are in my backyard, before anyone says anything about that, I would really like those people in desperate housing need to be able to bid on them because of things that we actually haven't updated in Home Point over the years. So that's why I've come to the table. I will be putting all of that in writing because since I've had 2 of these within a week, this is not great. And I'm really pleased that this is going to come forward later on because of the consultation and so on, so everybody can have a very good input in it into the future. Housing, as you know, has been a driver for me for many, many years, especially rural housing. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kidd, and I'm sure Dean takes all that on board as well. So, well, that's 2 bites of the cherry, isn't it, Councillor Evans? Councillor Dartnell first, and then I'll think about it.
Thank you. Housing is clearly fundamentally important, and we welcome this report. A strong housing strategy absolutely vital to council operation. But before I talk about that, briefly, since Councillor Jones has brought up the Northwest Relief Road, I'd be adding the following. The Northwest Relief Road is a proposed solution that might have been welcomed in the 1980s. It's a solution aimed at and accepting universal car ownership in a wider environment.
Dartnell, Councillor Dartnell,
sorry.
This is a housing paper.
I know that. Well, somebody brought up the Northwest Relief Road
just because he was referring to it in the fact that it opens up land for housing. So move on.
I can move on.
Thank you.
The future must be addressed. One of the greatest issues ahead is how we give the public appealing alternatives to car ownership.
Councillor Dartnell.
Oh, sorry, I got the wrong paragraph. The Labour Group supports the need to consult with the public on housing needs as soon as possible after the coming election, and the extended period is welcome at this point in the electoral cycle. We also welcome the Labour government's common sense approach to reform of the right to buy, and we recognise that allowing Shropshire Council to retain capital from house sales will improve the council's ability into the future to provide a more robust rebuilding programme.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Dartnell. I might add at this point that's probably the only good thing the Labour government has done, frankly. But anyway, Councillor Towers, I'm still thinking about it. Councillor Evans.
Very simply, we in this group welcome this report and the extended period, and that'll be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Go on then.
Thank you, Chairman. Where I was coming from, and I join everybody else around here in saying, yes, it is good this strategy is coming forward for consultation and also the length of it. So welcome that. But where I'm picking up is in the paper report before you today, it talks about affordable housing. I looked at some of the stats for this council recently, and I note that in quarter 3, 2023, it was 246 houses that had been completed. In Q3 for this year, it's 157, a big drop. And if one looks at the annual ones from December in December 22, 239, December 23, 317, December 24, 377. Where, as I say, for this year, at the end of Q3, it's 157. Are we going to get anywhere near the 300 mark that we have done in previous years?
I can't answer that question. I'm sure Councillor Carroll can come back on some of that, Councillor Evans, but what I would say, funny enough, I was looking to see if Councillor Kerr was on the call, because if Councillor Dean was here, if Councillor Julian Dean was here, he would say once again that what we actually need the government to do is to change these silly rules for developers that allow them X amount of profit before they have to complete any affordable homes, because that is the one thing that makes it very difficult for us. Councillor Carroll, I'll let you come back in.
Thank you. I'm not sure entirely where to start, but I think I will actually start with Roger's question about housing delivery numbers, because I'm not entirely sure that Councillor Evans has understood the nature. Yes, I know exactly the portal that you're referring to, but I think you'll find that that isn't solely delivery by Shropshire Council. That's delivery by our partner RSLs as well. So when you talk about, are we going to match the 370 units that were built in one previous year? Well, that's very much a question of what's our pipeline, what's the pipeline of Connexus, what's the pipeline of Homes Plus group, what's the pipeline of Romford, what's the pipeline of Shropshire Rural Housing. It's not that is a metric of the health of the affordable housing market in Shropshire. It's also a metric of the health of the construction and house building market in Shropshire. However, it is not something over which Shropshire Council, even through our arm's length management organisation Star Housing, has total, complete and overall control. We do not have the ability to, and never have had the ability to, deliver that number of units ourselves. It has always been in partnership. In fact, the lion's share of those units would have been delivered by registered social landlord partners. Now, there's a couple of things I would mention in this. And the first one is, as I went into at full council when I moved the 30-year business case for the housing revenue account, was that the land within the housing revenue account that was available to be either developed or redeveloped was running out. And the reason for needing to increase the borrowing headroom, if I can take members back to that conversation, was in order to acquire fresh, if you like, virgin sites for further development to be done on. That is always going to, and what has precipitated that is a bottleneck in the housing revenue account's ability to directly deliver housing within Shropshire. Now, the second thing that I would point out in relation to why have housing pipelines, not just for Shropshire Council's own housing company, but also for our registered social landlord partners, slowed down over recent years, and that is because of the amount of capital investment money being put into retrofitting existing properties to reduce their carbon footprint, to improve their EPCs, which is a standard which has been increased by both the last government and is to be increased again by this government in a move towards net zero. So that means that there is less money available for direct delivery by registered social landlords of new properties, because a part of that capital investment sum that would normally be used in each year to deliver new houses is having to be used for retrofitting. And that is a good thing for the tenants of those properties and for the future tenants of those properties. But there are choices, and tough choices have to be made. And when you only have a limited capital budget, as most of these RSLs and ourselves do, the choices have to be made and the balance has to be struck of investing in retrofitting to hit the environmental and sustainability targets and the delivery of new properties. So when you ask me, are we going to deliver 370 units in the current year to match one that we did in, was it 3 or 4 years previously? I will tell you with absolute certainty, no, we are not, because both ourselves and our partners are investing that same money that would normally in the past have been used to build new houses into a multitude of things, including in retrofitting. So that is why direct housing delivery by housing registered social landlords and the council is lower than it was in those years. That's not to say that those are necessarily the only affordable houses that will come into the system in that period of time, because that doesn't necessarily and there are various metrics that we watch, but from the page that you floated across the screen, I assume that that's direct delivery. That doesn't also take into account is Section 106 acquisitions of affordable units being delivered on market sites, which I would imagine is probably in excess of 170 in the current year, but I don't have that figure to hand, and I can't see exactly what the X and Y axes of the chart that you were just flashing up said. So that is why we're talking about different levels of affordable housing delivery, direct delivery now than we were 4 or 5 years ago. Now, thank you, Ed, for your supportive comments of the housing strategy. I appreciate that. I don't think there were any questions in there that needed an answer. No, okay. We'll go back. We'll move on now to Councillor Dartnell. Rosemary, thank you for your support. I think that one of the things that, in terms of overall housing for Shropshire and the housing numbers, I appreciate and do value the changes, some of the changes that have been proposed in the right to buy. I think certainly it is something that we have been pressing for a long time, the ability to retain all of right to buy receipts for the purpose of replacement properties. That was bizarre anomaly that should never have continued as long as it did. I'm very grateful to this government for now having grasped that nettle and changed it. It doesn't necessarily change, though, the dynamic, because we're talking what is relatively small sums in terms of overall housing delivery budgets. So that is not going to affect, in a county like Shropshire, that is not going to deliver 100 new properties a year. What is going to deliver those kind of more significant strategic level sums are the changes that we made to the 30-year business case for the HRA at full council last week, which increases the borrowing headroom for the HRA to enable that large scale investment. So whilst it's welcome, it's a very, very minor part of the capital available for the HRA. To come back to Heather's point finally, the problems of Home Point aren't something new and aren't something that we haven't talked about before, aren't something that I haven't already covered in previous cabinet and council meetings and scrutiny meetings. There remains an intention in the medium to longer term for the replacement of that with a newer system. I do still firmly believe that choice-based lettings is absolutely the right thing to do and is absolutely appropriate in most circumstances. However, we recognise that the Home Point system is of its time, and at its time it was one of the earlier forays into that world by Connexus's predecessor name, South Shropshire Housing Association, and at the time it was a fairly groundbreaking system, but it has exceeded probably its life and has passed what the market is providing. We have an issue of we only have so much capacity to deliver things within the housing department. That is something that's on our long-term delivery programme. It's not something that has been prioritised in the last 2 to 3 years. What we have prioritised is, if you like, sticking plasters to keep it functioning as well as possible until we get to a point where a full and comprehensive replacement for it can be made. That being said, I appreciate you bringing the case to my attention, but I can't comment on individual cases that I know nothing of and haven't seen today. So please just send them to me and I will get them looked at. But the Home Point system should not be preventing people who are eligible for a property from bidding for it, but it's not always necessarily just the home point system itself, which is at fault. The home point system uses the bidding criteria that the landlord gives to it. So, like I said, I can't comment on individual cases, but in generalities, the home point system uses the bidding criteria that the landlord gives to us, and that can sometimes create problems when a landlord perhaps employs tighter restrictions than the original planning permissions entailed, and that is rightly challenged when that comes to our attention. Please do bring those cases, individual cases, to my attention. I'll make sure that that is passed on to the team and to Home Point to be investigated. I think that covers all of the questions. I would just add finally that good quality housing, timely housing, and in the right locations is one of the key determinants of healthy outcomes and healthy lives for people. So it is absolutely fundamental that we get this right for the quality of life of residents of Shropshire. We have achieved a huge amount of success in the housing world over the last number of years, but particularly in the last year, at a point at which temporary accommodation numbers have been skyrocketing nationally. And we have managed at times small reductions and at times plateauing of those numbers. And at a point at which the use of bed and breakfast around the country among our peer authorities, we know is increasing 10%, even more than that, year on year and month on month in some areas. Whereas thanks to the investments that this council has made, particularly over the last 2 to 3 years, in our own temporary accommodation units, we're now down to only 75 households being placed in bed and breakfast, which even at the start of the year was 91 households. So we are moving, contrary to the rest of the local government sector, we are moving in the absolute right direction, and that is absolutely in the best interests of all of our residents, particularly those who need access to temporary accommodation. So we have had huge successes even ahead of this strategy. But I digress. I wanted to flag that as something that we as a council should be rightly proud of and the direct result of the investments we've made. But I move recommendation 3.1 as amended.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Carroll. Anybody who's seen the testimony by the gentleman from the tannery will know what a difference that can make. So I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 9, which is Marches Forward Partnership proposition. Pretty much everybody in the room will know that in September 23 we signed a memorandum of understanding for the Marches Forward Partnership. 4 areas: nature, energy and climate adaptation, health, housing and skills, transport, digital connectivity, food development and visitor economy. Now that was a very wide and broad brush areas of work to look at. What's been happening in the time since then is that following all the partnership meetings and individual sort of project-based meetings, we've now focused down to 4 projects, which is the Marches Good Food movement, the Marches Environmental Investment and Innovation Platform, Marches Health Prevention Pilot, and then the Marches Connects, which is a transport project. The reason for bringing this paper to you today, and I'm assured that you've all read it, is that I think going forward, we've all agreed, that's the 4 leaders and the 4 chief execs, that we need to put something slightly more formal in an informal way. And I know this sounds really daft, but obviously the government's white paper has not helped us at all in working across the red line border that is between England and Wales. But basically going forward we're now talking about monies going in and coming out, so we need to have some more formal mechanism. So in a sense, what we're suggesting is that there is a quarterly partnership board I still haven't got the right teeth in today, comprising leaders and chief execs from the partner organisations. That's how it's worked in the past. A revolving chair will be appointed. That's how it's worked in the past, so nothing new there. The partnership board will not be able to make any decisions that have an impact on the individual organisation. The individual organisation will still do that. in the same way that we do that now. It will be resourced through staff in kind contributions, but it will be coordinated by a dedicated programme lead, each part of it. The structure is deliberately simple. As I said, the white paper doesn't help us in this respect, but I think going forward, as we've obviously got elections this year. There are elections not that far away in the other areas as well. It makes sense to have it slightly more formal but flexible. So I'm happy to move the recommendations 3.1, which is approve the March's proposition, and that's the agreed vision and statement, which has been placed before you, and also 3.2, which is to take forward the informal governance arrangements set out as a basis for collective delivery and resourcing. So money's coming backwards and forwards both ways. Have I got a seconder for that?
Yeah, Councillor Nellens, portfolio holder for climate change, environment and transport. I'll second.
But Roger's looking very dodgy now, to be fair. 2 bites of the cherry.
Thank you. Light touch collaboration with our neighbours on either side of the English and Welsh border can only improve our collective knowledge and ambition. Working with others in common purpose has the potential to improve policy, economy and environment. As such, therefore, potential to improve the daily lives of our own residents. We are particularly keen to focus on the high productivity rural and small town and city-based economy. Although we all know we have no cities here, we can include our vibrant county town in that role instead. There is much to celebrate and promote in our county that is shared with our Marches neighbours. The Labour Group notes this as an informal, friendly arrangement with neighbours, including joint projects that can, where necessary, be opted in and out of. We also note that any future collaboration that exceeds light touch will come about under joint ventures, and we expect that these will each come to council for examination. And I note you've said that already, Leslie. But what was the cost of the Metro Dynamics consultancy work, and how was that payment divided between the 4 authorities? Has that contract now come to an end?
Okay, thank you. The one thing I did forget to say actually is that this paper has gone to all of the other councils in its own form as well. Councillor Evans, and then I'll come to Councillor Kidd last.
It's only short to say, yes, I congratulate you and I congratulate the other leaders in coming forward. Residents do not recognise local authority borders, and the closer that we can work together to deliver a better life for our residents, the better.
Thank you. Councillor Kidd.
Thank you for indulging me. I'm literally now speaking as a backbencher. As you know, I've greatly supported this and thought it was a long time coming. I'm not going to speak against it. I'm going to beg for your and the Chief Exec's intervention on something that's just happened, and it may also include Kirsty Hurst-Knight. In that, as you will know, Churchstoke is in Powys and it's directly between Cherbury and Bishop's Castle. Powys County Council yesterday sent out letters to all parents saying there would no longer be transport to their closest school. And this is a real cross-border issue that actually needs to be dealt with. Bishop's Castle is about 4 miles away for them. Welshpool is 9-10 miles away. And if ever there was a case where actually we should be working cross-border, because there are children who live in Cherbury who get transport to Welshpool because it is a mile closer. So it works both ways, and it will do that all along the border. And this is a significant issue. I will forward you the letters that these parents have got, and it's actually telling people who have got a very close school where historically in the 38 years that I've lived locally, those children have always had free transport to their closest school, and their feeder schools quite often only feed Bishop's Castle. So we've got Welsh and English children. So I can't see a better organisation than this to actually intervene on this and make sure that those children, as well as our children going to Welsh schools, get a fair deal, because transport to school takes a long time in rural areas, and actually it's much better if it's a shorter journey rather than a longer journey.
Yeah, thank you. I'm aware we've already had one issue with with a Welsh school in this instance.
Sorry, and I thought it was resolved, but if you can send the letter to either Leslie or myself, we'll pick it up immediately.
We've already dealt with one of them
Yeah.
because we had a similar thing.
Did, and it's the same area.
Right.
And that individual happened to be one of our district nurses.
Right. Yes, I remember that.
And she came to Cherbury School, and her parents live in Cherbury. That's how porous the border is.
Yeah.
So this is a really fundamental issue.
Yeah, and I think this, from what I remember, this is a policy decision made by Paris, isn't it, about transport? So, okay, leave that. If you can let Kirsty and I have that.
Well, the community college has also today found the legislation which actually said they should, whether it still holds across the border, because of course education is a devolved matter. So I will forward you that, all of it, so that you can see all of it.
Okay, thank you. And I'm conveniently meeting James next week, I think it is. Okay. In answer to your question, Roger, about sorry, it was Rosemary's. It was a number of funding streams. I'm just getting so it was pretty much everything that's cost anything has been split across all of the authorities, and that contract has now come to an end. Yeah, as far as I'm aware, it has. And that was, to be honest, a lot of that work was around when we had hoped that there might be a way, a more, I say concrete way, you know what I mean? When we, before the English White Paper, I think, was when we hoped that we might be able to do more of a devolution deal with that. But that never came. Well, it didn't come to the fore, did it? But what it has done is enabled us to do this work as to what is the best way forward for us operating in the future. So, okay, thank you. So, Jones.
Because a lot of the other authorities are looking to us for best practice on a lot of things that we're doing. And so I'd really like to name check Hayley for, very sort of unseen work under the radar, but it will, in the future, will provide a good basis for working well with other authorities. So well done, Hayley.
I was just going to say, actually, at the risk of upsetting my other leaders across I think Hayley's basically driven this project. No, but I genuinely believe she has. Part of the reason for having this slightly more formal agreement, although it is informal, is actually to ensure that everybody's pulling their weight on this project. And let's not forget that we did win an award for this as well. So, it's been recognised elsewhere. So I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Item number 10, the proposed adoption of the draft Oswestry Shopfront Design Guide, standing pre-application advice notice. Councillor Chris Schofield with a catchy title.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Chris Schofield, Portfolio Holder, Planning and Regulatory Services. The design guide was produced as a part of the successful Oswestry High Street Heritage Action Zone, known as HAS project, which was completed in March 2024 by the Future Oswestry Partnership, comprising Shropshire Council, Oswestry Town Council and Oswestry BID and Historic England. The design guide was also produced in partnership with the Oswestry Civic Society. Cabinet previously gave approval to undertake a formal consultation on the draft design guide in November last year. Once adopted, the design guide will be used by Shropshire Council as a material consideration when determining planning applications relating to shop fronts within the Oswestry Conservation Area. The design guide also has the potential to act as a template that could be adopted to provide similar guidance for other towns in the county. Thank you.
And do I have a second of that one? King Berlin.
I'd like to second it, yes, as born and bred in Oswestry, or Os Vegas as we like to call it now. It's a very thriving town, and we've got a very thrusting town clerk, Aaron, who's working very well with this. I was lucky enough to be the mayor of Oswestry 3 or 4 years ago, and we did open quite a few of the shop fronts, and it was really great to see, and it'd be really great to see a place like Wem really take this on board. So yeah, it would be good news for everybody.
Yes, thank you, Mark. And I would say the same thing. It made a huge difference to some of the work that we did in the pilot version of this in Oswestry, and it is a blueprint for what can be used across the rest of the county. Ed first and then Rosemary. Ed?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Jones. Absolutely, this really does need rolling out. We are having every market town is trying to help itself economically in our county, and the trouble is if we neglect the town centres and the look of it, the uniqueness of each of our towns gets lost in sort of urbanisation or tack or whatever else it is. And so we've got that starting to happen, or has happened in Wem, and I've been in touch with Dr. Wigley on this, and he mentions this, and I mentioned it before now at Cabinet, I think, or full council. The sooner this can be rolled out and agreed across the county, the better, to be honest, because I don't think it's just Wem. I think that all our county towns need looking after and need some guidance, because without this, when I approach enforcement and things like that, they say their hands are tied or they can't do anything for us. And meanwhile, things just continue to spiral down. So, yeah, let's have a rollout, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Towers. Councillor Dartmouth?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Heritage is a meaningful aspect and asset of all of Shropshire, isn't it? And while I don't really recognise anything in the design proposals that really look very Oz Vegas to me, I understand the local member's contribution as his own patch. We must respect and protect our heritage in all areas. So this is really important. Adopting a guide as a material planning consideration is vital for all of our towns. The poor numbers of consultation responses, though, is very worrying. I think we had 24 or 25. It's not really indicative of anything, I guess. I note the council's suggestion that strong responses come mainly when there is an objection to a proposal, and there's truth in that. But should we be looking at why this is so, and worrying a bit about that and looking into it in more depth?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Dartmouth. Councillor Macy and then Councillor Schofield. Come back.
It was just that as chair of the Future Osler Street Group, these sort of things and the High Street Action Zone is things we've been focusing on, and we've seen a real change, as Councillor Jones referred to, in terms of shop fronts coming forward. And I think this just sort of strengthens that approach. I think from our point of view as well, it's been quite interesting that during the shopfront renewal scheme, there was a number of pictures of the old original shop fronts that were put to the owners, and they were really pleased to be able to see that, because we were able to pull them from the archives and from other partners to put them in front of those. So actually having that sort of informed approach not only sort of ensures you've got something to base it on, but it can also inspire those shop owners to what was there originally, rather than starting with a blank sheet of paper. So I think things like this and building those into the planning they are certainly what the public's been asking me for in terms of approaches to our town centres. So I think it's a good move forward.
Thank you, Rob. Councillor Schofield?
Thank you, Leader. I do agree with Councillor Dartmouth about the consultation, but for me, it doesn't matter how much consultation you're doing. I'm an original member of the Future Osler Street Group when it started many years ago, and it's been fantastic for Osler Street. I get my feedback off the people on the street. I've spent all day outside Iceland handing out leaflets and everything. It doesn't matter how much you try to, cooperate with the public and get their views. They're not that interested. But word of mouth never changes, and they say how fantastic it looks. Thank you, Leader.
Yeah, and I think you're right in a way, Councillor Dartnell, that there has been a huge amount of consultation done on this particular well, I can tell you actually that I was at a meeting the day before we actually closed down for COVID was over this. And I think the fact is that there has been so many meetings taking place about this that actually I think the number of consultee replies is something that it's the quality of them as much as the quantity, I think. But I would urge those of you in sort of towns, and I know Ed would do this, that it's about us trying to get people to answer consultations as well. You're right, if people aren't that bothered, they don't bother. But actually, we need to explain to them why they need to. And all I would say about, and Rosemary will know this, I'm sure, from herself, I've had a significant number of emails about brightly coloured shop fronts in the town centre here. Let me just put it that way. That's when people realise why this is important. Anyway, it is a good thing, and as Councillor Tower said, the sooner we roll this out, the better, really. So I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 11. I should point out, Councillor Macy, that I will now second this as Councillor Motley is unable to be here. She hasn't recovered from her operation as quickly as she thought she might have done. Item number 11, leisure facilities operating contract options. Councillor Rob Macy.
Thank you, Leader. Robert Macy, portfolio holder for Culture and Digital. I'm pleased to bring the report to Cabinet today as it presents a practical, forward-thinking solutions for the management of some of our key leisure facilities in Shropshire. Our leisure centres are more than just buildings, they're vital spaces that support health, well-being and community life. The recommendations set out in this report reflect a balanced approach. By transferring the management of Church Stretton Leisure Centre to the Shropshire Community Leisure Trust, we can improve the facility's long-term sustainability, enhance the marketing and membership options, and create greater resilience within the staffing structure. Importantly, the approach is expected to deliver financial savings whilst maintaining the same level of service for residents. For Ludlow and Cleobury Mortimer, the proposed lease extension with Team Leisure offers a way to continue provision at no additional cost to the council, whilst ensuring these facilities remain an asset for their communities. At the same time, due diligence will be carried out to make sure we're achieving the best possible value for Shropshire. This is part of a wider process of ensuring our leisure facilities are managed in the most effective way, and I believe these proposals strike the right balance between the financial responsibility and maintaining high quality services. And with that, I'll move the recommendations. Thank you.
I remember right.
Yes, before I actually just speak about it, on recommendation 3.3, I'd just like it, if possible, Leader, that we could add where it says delegate responsibility to the Chief Executive in consultation with the Leader and portfolio holder, that after Leader, we also put comma local member.
I don't have an issue with that, Councillor Mason.
No, that's fine.
If I could then
carry on.
With speaking to the paper, I fully support, everything has to be reviewed when leases come to an end and moving forward. I would just urge, when looking at best value for this county, that you actually take into account rurality and actually delivering in rural areas, because obviously looking at a balance sheet doesn't always give you the benefit of rurality. And please take that on board. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. Echo a lot of what Councillor Butler has said, I think, on behalf of the local members around Ludlow, because they are a little bit concerned, I think. It's delegated to the Chief Executive and the portfolio holder. They would want to be involved, and they are also suggesting that any real decisions are left until after May, because we are so near Purda now. So that if there is any recommendations that come forward, and also, as Councillor Butler said, but member, can we have an S at the end of that for local members?
Yeah, I Dartnell first, and then I'll come back to Councillor Macy.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to ask a couple of clarifications. So for Church Stretton, what are the arrangements with the existing SCLT Serco contract with regard to repairs and maintenance, and how will this apply to Church Stretton if it is combined into the current contract? At 210, there's talk about a transfer of arrangements, GP consultation, etc. by June 2024, which I assume is a typo. And at 211, what are the proposed repair responsibilities for the Cleobury Mortimer Centre?
Thank you, Councillor Dartnell. Sorry. You're going to bring Grant.
I'm going to bring Grant in for those ones to get that exactly right for you, so I don't do the wrong ones.
So before you do that, let me just say that, and again, Grant will be able to tell us when the decision has to be made, because I think there's an issue with the timescales for the lease for Ludlow. But Ludlow Leisure Centre is not an issue here, because the contract runs until 2029. So it just happens that Team operate both the Ludlow and Cleobury Mortimer Centre, but the Ludlow Leisure Centre is not, you know, in any situation basically, because it's the contract's 2029. I'm pretty sure. Do you want to bring?
Maybe I should just from that point of view, Ludlow is a very successful leisure centre which washes its own face and so on, and is already meeting what we're looking for from leisure facilities. So from that point of view, the local members shouldn't be concerned from that aspect, because it's a separate bit. It's part of the same operator.
Yeah,
so.
I'm pretty sure that we cannot wait until after the election period, because I think the contract is due up, but I will get knowing that Grant Wilson is online. Grant, can you answer any of those questions for us, or Jane, depending on which one you want?
I'm happy if Jane's happy for me to answer them. The maintenance responsibilities vary site by site. At Church Stretton, there's a split between Shropshire Council and the academy there, and the brief we've got for the. Can you hear me? You're looking.
Yeah, we've got a strange echo going on. I think we've got two screens with It sounds to me like that one's got its sound up. But Grant, you carry on. I'll fiddle.
So the maintenance split at Church Stretton is split between us and the academy. The brief really for the transition to SLT Circle will be kind of a three-way split between us, the academy, and SCLT Circle. There's an existing kind of arrangement across the rest of the contract, which defines which items are our responsibilities and which items are the operator's responsibilities, and that will carry on. It'll be along the same lines as the other sites in the contract. Cleobury Mortimer is slightly different. We own the site and we've got full maintenance responsibilities for that under the licence to occupy. The academy there also contribute to the maintenance costs there. In terms of timescale, we are under quite a bit of pressure from Team Leisure to make a decision on their proposal for Ludlow and for Cleobury Mortimer. Their grant funding agreement runs out. The existing grant funding agreement they've got runs out on the 31st of March, and after that point, they're concerned that they will be operating that facility at a loss. But we're working to gather the information to make an informed decision on that as soon as possible.
Thank you, Grant. Jane, I think Jane's also online. Can you just give us some information around the timing of this, please?
It's in line with Grant's last comment there, basically, in terms of Cleobury Mortimer. The decision we need to make is whether the proposal that we've received from Team Leisure works for the council relative to the alternative options, which in the long term would ideally be that we would have a Shropshire-wide contract for all of our leisure centres, which would permit the larger, more profitable leisure centres to subsidise these more smaller and more rural leisure centres, which I think is very.
You're ringing me. Oh, Kate, you're ringing me.
Joyce.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to know that Keith's ringing you. Thank you, Jane. Do carry on.
So yes, that's the situation with regards to Cleobury Mortimer. As Grant says, Team Leisure is keen to have an early decision on that, so that the time pressure relates to our operator there, Team Leisure, rather than being driven by the council directly. So we're trying to respond to their requirements as an operator, as a commercial operator, and we will attempt to do that. But hence the request for a delegation of authority in this instance. In terms of SCLT Serco, we hope to move forward with that decision as soon as we can, in order to extend that contract, which already exists, to cover quite a number of existing leisure centres.
Thank you, Jane. And therefore, if the decision is made before the elections, the local members current would be consulted. So I don't see that. Yeah, I don't see that.
I think from that perspective, even though we might not publicly be able to consult and do those bits, yes, certainly behind the scenes those consultations take place.
So I have a second. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 12, management arrangements at Much Wenlock Leisure Centre. Councillor Rob Macy.
Okay, thank you, Leader. Much Wenlock Leisure Centre is a joint use facility located within William Brooks School. Unlike other leisure centres in Shropshire, it is owned by the school, not the council, under a 125-year lease agreement. The council's managed community use of the centre for many years, but ownership, maintenance and responsibility for long-term investment lie with the school. This arrangement makes Much Wenlock unique within our wider leisure portfolio. The council cannot make direct improvements to the facility or its financial sustainability, as we do in other centres that we own or contract out. Additionally, the layout of the site and the safeguarding requirements mean that public access is limited during school hours, restricting commercial opportunities. These factors make it increasingly challenging for the council to justify the ongoing subsidy required to operate the facility. That is why the proposal before Cabinet today is not a decision to close the centre, but withdraw the subsidy and transfer operational responsibility to the Trust, which it already oversees during its educational use. The Council would continue to work closely with the school during the one-year notice period to constructively discuss about immediate improvements to the experience of the leisure centre users, and explore options for capital investment to support the shared ambition to retain public use. Discussions with the school have been open and constructive, and we share a clear ambition to create a facility that is sustainable, cost neutral, and capable of serving both the school and wider community in the long term. The school has already engaged in exploratory discussions with an external provider, a positive step towards securing the centre's future under new management. To demonstrate our commitment to securing the future, we have added a specific recommendation around our endeavours to assist with capital investment. The only reason the Council is unable to make a more detailed financial commitment at this stage is the necessary work required by the school to confirm the exact capital needs. I want to take a moment to recognise the role of Councillor Dan Thomas, the local member for Much Wenlock. He's stood up for the community throughout this process. He's been pivotal in bringing the different partners together, ensuring that progress is made and driving the search for a sustainable way forward. His commitment to representing local concerns and securing a viable future for the centre has been unwavering. We fully expect him to hold us to account on our recommendations, particularly around our continued engagement and our endeavours to assist with capital investment. We appreciate that this may not be the preferred outcome for everyone, but it represents the route the Council needs to take and the best available route to try and secure a long-term future. Over the coming months, we would continue to work closely with all the stakeholders to try and support a smooth transition, explore the opportunities for investment with the aim of securing public access. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a second. Oh, sorry.
I'll move the recommendation.
Oh, thank you, Rob. I got a seconder for that one.
Yeah, Councillor Kirsty Hurst-Knight, portfolio holder for, Children and Education.
Councillor Dan Thomas, local member.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak to Cabinet today regarding the future of Much Wenlock Leisure Centre. The recent public consultation on the Leisure Centre overwhelmingly demonstrated the deep affection and value our community places on this asset. It's clear that this is not just a local facility, it's a hub, drawing users from Telford, Bridgnorth, Shrewsbury and further afield. This speaks volumes about its importance and potential. As the local councillor for Much Wenlock, I've heard these sentiments directly from residents who greatly value this facility, and, as we know, Much Wenlock is the birthplace of the modern Olympics, with the best sporting heritage of anywhere in Shropshire. The consultation highlighted opportunities to enhance the centre's offerings. Resident suggestions were many and varied and included improving maintenance, refurbishment of showers and changing facilities, extending the hours and enhanced community engagement. This provides a clear roadmap for revitalisation. Let me be really clear. I stand with the users of the leisure centre and do not want to lose public access. However, I believe for the centre to go forward, we have to navigate a new direction. Shropshire Council's finances have been pushed to the brink, and while I completely understand the difficulties Shropshire Council faces in terms of revenue and funding, and incidentally, the school have also stated they cannot run the facility at a loss, so we have to look at ways the centre can be more flexible. As we know, Much Wenlock Leisure Centre is owned by the 318 Education Trust and is part of the Williambrook School site, and currently the facility cannot be used when the school is operational. However, users of the centre have commented that with small changes to the facilities and procedures, this could be overcome, which would allow greater usage of the facility and therefore much more income opportunities. To enable this more flexible usage will require some capital monies for alterations and for refurbishment, and I'm very grateful to the leader, portfolio holder and cabinet for agreeing to alter the recommendations, allowing the school, the leisure provider and ourselves as Shropshire Council time to look at a scheme which will allow greater access and benefit the community. The next step will be further meetings with the trust and the leisure provider to ascertain what is required and to bring forward a proposal for a one-off capital injection. The investment will be transformative, enabling the essential upgrades and assuring the centre's long-term viability. This strategic funding will not only secure the leisure centre's future, but unlock its potential to really serve the community. I've been really impressed by the 318 Education Trust and their leadership. They have willingly come to the table and are working with Council and I to explore options. I'm also deeply grateful for the unwavering support from Much Wenlock Town Council and our MP, Stuart Anderson. Their collaborative efforts and dedication to our community are invaluable. The Town Council's agenda item tomorrow is focusing on exploring further support, demonstrating their support to this vital asset. I will continue to work with the portfolio holder and Shropshire Council officers and our MP, and I will ask that the Town Council take a proactive approach to ensure the community are involved in ideas and proposals going forward. Once a programme of work is agreed and the capital investment secured, this will be a win-win for Much Wenlock and the wider community. It will result in an upgraded leisure facility, sustained public access, and enhanced support for the dedicated staff. By seizing this opportunity, we are preserving a cherished community resource and investing in our county's health, well-being and vitality, key aspirations of our Shropshire Plan. I thank you for listening to me today and to the people of Much Wenlock and the users of the Leisure Centre, and I look forward to returning to Cabinet in the future to speak in support of the capital sum required. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. I think Councillor Thomas is being rather kind to us when he talks about thanking me and the leader and thanking me and the portfolio holder, because I'm not sure we'd have got away with it if we hadn't have changed the recommendation, because your impassioned pleas have not fallen on deaf ears, Councillor Thomas, and nor have, I should point out, the number of letters that I've received. There isn't a single member around this table who wants to see the loss of public use at Much Wenlock, but it is a very difficult situation with the school as it is. I've got Councillor Dartnell I know wants to speak. I've also got Councillor Evans wants to speak. Councillor Wilde, hang on, do you want to speak? Yes, okay, after Councillor Evans. Councillor Dartnell first.
Thank you. I just want to relay some concerns from the member for Broseley, Councillor Caroline Bagnall. The main issue is clear. The Much Wenlock Leisure Centre serves quite a wide area, including Broseley. Many people from Broseley use the facilities, and many more would do so if it were better maintained, promoted and managed. The centre has been very poorly maintained and managed in recent years. The lockers don't lock, the showers don't shower, the non-slip surface on the floor has worn away. The fitness suite is dirty, there is a broken mirror on the wall, overall the equipment is in poor condition. I'm sure you all know this. The centre has not been promoted other than through its own Facebook page, no sharing of information on the pages of other areas, very little advertising at all, and this is a relatively young facility. And while millions of pounds have been devoted to swimming pools in Shrewsbury and Whitchurch, the council proposes to remove funding of £267,000 annually for this area of South Shropshire. Given that the council is supposed to be supporting healthier lifestyles, it seems contradictory to risk removing access to such a facility for so many people. I thought that the consultation was poorly written. The two choices at the beginning were quite confusing. That's the end of Caroline's statement. Then I'd like to add, I'm closing to the public. Should this happen, will result in a great disservice to the local community and it should be avoided. I note that that is where the work is currently focused. Capital investment is essential to put the facility back to an acceptable standard, but also to allow longer opening hours for public use. The centre is hampered by its current management arrangements and by its entry configuration. This paper is about giving notice to end the current contract and continue to negotiate with the 318 Academy Trust in that notice period. How confident is the portfolio holder that improved public access can be achieved and achieved within that 12-month notice period? What interim arrangements are there in place in case an agreement is not made in time? I find myself curiously in agreement with Councillor Butler. We must keep rurality at the front of minds. All main themes communicated by the public in the consultation should be heard loud and clear. This is a significant community facility that has potential to deliver on the pillars of the Shropshire Plan. The risk of closure to the public will have impact on local clubs and groups, on children and young people, and overall will have a negative impact on health and well-being. Some rightly fear economic damage in the immediate and wider area if the facility is no longer available to the public. They're right, asset loss is damaging. Alternative provision nearby is made inaccessible either on the grounds of cost or due to poor public transport. Finally, the public's verdict, criticism of Shropshire Council decision making. They ask, what do South Shropshire residents get in return for their council tax?
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. I looked at this and also at and I'll use the word so-called consultation, and the comments that are there, 1,819 replies, 96% individuals. It is a rural hub. The number of replies there shows how much it is valued by the different communities that surround it. And I also note that Shropshire Council is withdrawing its support. The school receives money to educate its children. I do not want money from that education to come into this leisure centre, although obviously funding is required for it. I also note the comments there which says that why wasn't there a box where I could put comments in? This is not a 1 or 2. It should have been done far more widely. So I am disappointed in it. I want that to continue and to be better than what it is now. Obviously, there has been a problem with investment in it, which has just been highlighted by Councillor Dartnell. I think it should be done again and re-looked. It shouldn't just be a financial saving here. We should look at the community. And I think that is one of the main differences to what I think and what apparently this cabinet thinks, is that one should pay attention to the community and work with the communities, not disregard this, which has got 1,819 replies. The majority of them reject what is there.
Thank you. Is it my turn? Yeah. So there must be an election coming or something, because I see everyone's glass is empty over there. My glass is, you haven't got one. I have, and mine's half full. So I've got a long association with the school. I was actually a governor at William Brook School. So I know a bit about the pool and everything. And I want to say thank you so much, Rob, for all the work you've done. It is really complicated. And I think from the onset, there was a recognition that public access was always going to be difficult. I think this gives us an opportunity to actually sort that out, because in order to make it viable for the school or for anybody, you have to get other people using it. And that's exactly what you're doing, what Dan Thomas is doing, what the town council are doing, and the school and the local MP, Stuart Anderson. They're working together to see exactly what model will work. So I think that is really, really good news. And I think all the work you've done, and Dan in Much Wenlock, should be appreciated, because we can't carry on realistically the way we were. We have to use things and use things smarter and better. So thank you for all your hard work, and I'm very hopeful that there will be a resolution over the coming months. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wild. Councillor Macy, I'm going to come back to you. Oh, sorry, I apologise, Will. You did ask to speak. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Lee. Just with my finance hat on, I just want to raise a couple of points, if I may, Leader. As Councillor Bagnall's statement was slightly misleading in saying that we're spending a lot of money in Whitchurch and Shrewsbury, where in fact we're actually saving money with new facilities, and those facilities are actually going to be coming in cost neutral now, and actually may make a profit on the Shrewsbury one. So it is, you cannot compare, you know, apples with a grape. So that's my first point. My second point is I go back again and again. Since the 30th of September, we've been in collaborative budgets. No alternative has come up for the £227,000 needed to maintain that subsidy in Much Wenlock from any of the other parties. And Councillor Thomas is exactly doing the right thing by getting all stakeholders together, and like we have done in Church Stretton, like it's been done in Bishop's Castle, like we will do wherever else we have an issue, we will bring the stakeholders together and find a solution that works for that community. Thank you.
Councillor Kirsty Hurst-Knoll.
Yeah, just a couple of points of clarity, Councillor Evans. We're not removing funding for education. As you know, you sit on school forum. That's a completely separate issue. I don't want the public to think that we're withdrawing funds for education. This is a completely separate pot and issue. I just wanted to thank the portfolio holder. I know you've had a lot of conversation and positive conversations, and my understanding there's still positive conversations that continue with the school. The school do not want to manage their facility. I'm from Bridgnorth, where we have exactly the same issues. We had to change the entrance to our swimming pool so that it could be used throughout the day. It is a shared facility that's run by Halo, so it can be done, and I welcome these conversations that you are actually actively having for a resolution. And to be clear, the second recommendation is showing our commitment to finding a resolution for the pool, so I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to do something slightly unusual here, and I apologise, Paul, in advance. I'm actually going to suggest that we move into an exempt session for about 10 minutes. So I will promise I will come and get you. Do I have a second of that? Thank you, Dean. All those in favour of moving this to exempt for just a few moments? Thank you very much indeed. On the basis that we'll go back into a public session to make the decision. You'll understand why. Paul, I promise. No, you won't have that long. I promise you. I promise you, you won't have that long. Yeah, could you just ask them to go off? Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so we have a proposer. We have a sorry. Oh, sorry. Councillor Mason, forgive me. So keen.
That's okay. Thank you, Leader. No, I think I just wanted to pick up on a couple of those points that were in the previous bit. I think Councillor Butler picked up on the fact of investing that capital into Shrewsbury and into Whitchurch is what's giving us this approach of trying to make things sustainable and so forth as we go forward and try and neutralise those ongoing costs. And that's the same reasoning for the second recommendation in the report, is that investment of capital hopefully then gives a future use that you can take forward and improve the facility to do that. I think in terms of investing in the south of the county, you'll see from the report one of the potential investment ways of doing the capital investment is the SIL monies from the infrastructure levy. There's already, I know, items within the school potentially, or within the sporting provision within the place plan. So that's why we're looking at that, as that's a good potential route and so on. So it's just about trying to make that investment. As we say, all the partners around the table at the moment, they're all very willing. Everybody's on the same page in terms of how do we find what the new future looks like for it. It's a case of taking that forward. I think there was a thing about how are we going to progress it. I've already made the commitment to the school, and Dan will know in the meeting I'm in of absolutely work doesn't stop between now and the election. Behind the scenes, obviously publicly there's that you can do, but in terms of trying to help move that along, where are they going, what are the timetables and so on, I know the town council are committed as well to carry on those efforts at pace. So yeah.
I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. And you keep nagging down. Thank you. Thank you for coming in this afternoon. Right, I'm now going to ask that we exclude the press and public. I'm so sorry, Paul. I'm happy to propose that. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, Councillor Nellen, I'll second.
Thank you. Sorry, Paul, I'm going to have to ask you to disappear again.